Hey everybody, welcome to Landscape Rescue. My name is Stuart Moore, and today I think we might do a Lowe's plant shopping video. Let's get in there. We haven't been to this particular Lowe's in a while. I step right outside the parking lot. They've got these big displays right out here in front of the parking lot. They've increased their footprint quite a lot. I don't know if you can see that. It wasn't this much last year. I'm excited. They've got a lot of market share and they're taking advantage of it. That's a good thing. And here we are. There's already stuff I want to talk about. It's fantastic. The first thing that I noticed when I walked up was the dappled willow here. Flamingo dappled willow. Very pretty. Look at that new foliage. And we've talked about this on the channel before a couple years ago. I love these. What I want you to take away from this is this new growth is exactly that, new growth. And they're big boys, 10 by 10. That's the Flamingo dappled willow by Monrovia. Just remember, if you need any extra information on these, you can go to monrovia.com and just type in dappled willow and this will pop up. You can read all about it. A lot of times they'll graft these to a more robust, painfully robust willow, and they'll create those standard dappled willows, which you get in fights over at the garden center because they're so pretty when they first come out. You just need to maintain them. You need to trim them. So just know that this thing gets 10 by 10. It's not a little guy. You're going to have, if you're putting it in a space where it can't get 5 by 5 in each direction, right? 5 feet in that direction, 5 feet in this direction, and then 10 feet tall, then don't put it there unless you're willing to put in the work. And it will be some work. But every time you trim it, you get that beautiful, beautiful foliage. It's worth it, I think. As soon as I pulled into the parking lot to park, I saw that rhododendrons were starting to come in full bloom. And we talked about these in the deer resistance video. This is a Ramapo rhododendron, very, very pretty. They don't get huge, they're easy to manage. In my area, they take their licks because of the dry winters. Let's see, yeah, 3 by 4. No bigger than, say, this nitty gritty rose, 3 by 4. A good companion, if you can get them both to bloom at the same time. This might be a little early for roses in my zone 6 to really start popping. A lot of times they come in different climates, they're blooming at different times. The azaleas and the rhododendrons are kind of starting to bloom really good for us here now. Now this one might be a little bit of ahead. This is also a rhododendron from Monrovia. And let's see the name of this guy. This is September Song. September Song in a 5-gallon. Could quite possibly be free. I don't see a price on it. Here we go. $79. It's not that it's not pretty. It is very pretty. $79 for me on a rhododendron is a little risky here. I've said this before, I'll say it again. I feel like rhododendrons and azaleas in our area pick the people that they want to live with, and they've never picked me. They don't die, they just get smaller and smaller and smaller because I'm pruning out the dead from the winter. I'm just damaging tissue all winter long, and then in the spring, I've got a little, clinging to life, which I respect, tenacity, but I'm also kind of a ruthless gardener. So if it's taking up square footage in my garden, I just pull it out. It was a failed experiment, I move on. That's what I feel like azaleas and rhododendrons do here. I know some of you guys can grow them in a ditch. They're just everywhere like weeds. What a great problem to have. Here, it's a little hit and miss. I haven't taken a stab at them in the past decade. I probably, with what I've learned, I should probably take another shot at them. Maybe that's a thing we can do in the future. Now this September Song rhododendron is a 5 by 6. So it's a 5 by 6. That's a big old corn-fed country boy right there. You gotta be okay with that. That wouldn't look horrible between 2 windows. That's about the right distance usually between 2 windows. For most residential properties, it might work. That one, man, I wish we could grow those really well. The only rhododendrons and azaleas that I see that are really flourishing are in front of like 100-year-old houses down here. The ones with the carriage step in the front yard. These old varieties have been in the ground for 50 years. And the homeowner doesn't know anything about them if you talk to him, What are you doing to your rhododendron? Oh, I don't know. I spray Miracle Grow on it every once in a while. That's it, that's the extent. And then the lawn guy doesn't know anything about it either. He just comes and trims them. I found this guy just poking right back here. It was hidden. It was behind some Ramapos. Clearly not a Ramapo. This is called Gomer Waterer Rhododendron. Gomer, Waterer. So very pretty. The great thing about these types of rhododendrons is they've done so much work with them. Their flowers are gorgeous. It's insane how pretty some of these are. This one's a 6 by 6, so this one gets 6 feet by 6 feet. That's That's a big old boy too. You East Coast folks are probably having a really good time with these right now. I can just imagine. Well, the Masters is going on right now, so yeah, it's rhododendron and azalea time. For all the naysayers that said when I told you that $89 wasn't a good price, a typical wholesale price for Itohs, and they retail more than that, here's a 5-gallon Monrovia Bartzilla for $109. So right there, $20 off. That place we were at a couple days ago, that's a good spot to buy plants. I'm seeing some different varieties of Itohs than what I normally see. Here's a really pretty one, Cora Louise. Cora Louise. There's no blooms on it. This picture is absolutely gorgeous. It's a 3x3, just like most of them are. Very pretty, and it's the same price. It's $109 also. And then I saw this one here, which is Kiko Adored Itoh Peony, and it's a little smaller. It's only like 2.5 feet by 2.5 feet according to the tag, but that's really pretty too. I like Itohs, but they are so expensive. They're gonna start popping, and when they pop, they disappear. It is crazy. Here's the thing about Itohs. Just know that I could walk you around the parking lot and show you how it looks like the place was hit by artillery. I know I've said that before. They don't really tie up their potted trees, so they're just falling all over the place. These are only one windy day and one fall away from being 50% off. So just keep that in mind. You can buy one of these Itohs for 50 bucks if it takes a spill off of this counter, which inevitably it will do at some point. You just kind of got to be on it, right? You got to see them on clearance, snatch that bad boy up, because it's going to be fine. It's got the rest of the year to grow. And I'm not saying, all my Lowe's employees that follow the channel, I am not saying somebody needs to knock that over. I'm just saying it's an inevitability that one of those is going to get damaged, and I want my subscribers to get a crack at it. Not some amateur that shows up on once a year to a garden center on Mother's Day and buys some annuals. That's not who I want to get a crack at this. I want y'all to get a crack at it. Here's another one that's really pretty, the Julia Rose. I used to sell these. I think the wholesale price when I sold them was around $89. That's why I was really surprised that a retail spot like Nick's Hardware had them so cheap. But that one's pretty too. I mean, you'd have to give up one of your kidneys, but you could have a lot of fun with just Itohs, because your back row could be something completely different, because these don't really get that big. So you could get that big explosion of color mid-tier, and then have, let's just say, daylilies or something else that are gonna bloom all year long up front, have these mid-tier, have your back row, something like a dwarf crepe myrtle, or even black-eyed Susans would be pretty. Wow. I feel like maybe in honor of the Masters, we could talk about azaleas. You guys are definitely going to be the experts, because like I just said, I can't get anything to stick, but I should probably take another stab at it. This is called Autumn Starburst, Autumn Starburst. And this is really pretty with the white peppermint striped blooms. You can see one right there. Very pretty. And the cool thing about the Encore azaleas, and I know they don't bloom like the other ones bloom, they don't really put that big show on, at least they don't for me. Some of the subscribers have commented about the ever blooming azaleas just don't really pop like the old school varieties do, and I have to agree with them. They have a lot of different sizes, and I do like that. Like this one only gets 3x3. It's not a huge azalea, so it depends on the landscape, but in a shady part of your yard where you're getting morning sun shielded from the hot afternoon, you could tier these now, because you've got big ones. You've got rhododendrons that get 6 feet tall. You know, like you could really make a show of it. And there's some older varieties that stay smaller also. You would just have to do the research and then find them. That's really the thing. So this is Autumn Starburst, and it gets 3x3. Another cool one that I sold a lot of is Autumn Royalty. Now this is more purple. I think all azaleas kind of work really well with each other. Now this one doesn't have any blooms on it. Maybe it hasn't bloomed yet, but this is a bigger one. So this is a 4.5 foot by 4 foot wide. A little bit bigger, right? And so again, you could work those multiple tiers and really have a fun time stair-stepping, you know, all of that color. Man, I wish I had a bigger yard and I could do a lot of this stuff for you. I've done it with people that had a lot of money and a lot of yard. I've done plenty of it. I'm just not that person. Not yet. Here's Autumn Sangria, is a 4.5 by 4 footer. What we do know about azaleas, it's very easy. They like an acidic soil. What I found is that my saving grace is I feed stuff real well, and I just try to keep it going. The issue is our winters here, and evergreens take a hit. Because once I pull off a property, I can't ensure anybody's gonna water anything. And then when I try them at my house, I might not have the perfect situation, but I'm seeing if I can get them to stick. I know a guy, a really good friend of mine. Well, we became friends because he was always coming to the garden center. And then one day I just went to, he manages a big hospital, and we went out and I said, how are those Encore azaleas doing that you planted in full sun? This is like 3 or 4 months later. Man, they're living their best life. It's like contradictory to everything that we're supposed to think we know. But they have a big landscaping budget, so they can just plant stuff, and then once it starts looking, when it doesn't look good anymore, they can just pull it all out and re-landscape the entire area, which is a little frustrating from the landscaping side of things, because you don't really get to really watch stuff grow. It's almost temporary at that point, like you're working at a casino or something, you know, with their temporary landscapes. Check this one out. This is Autumn Lily, and Autumn Lily is white. It's a white azalea, which I have a love-hate relationship with white lilies, or white azaleas, because they kind of look junky when they're done blooming, and they cling to the, you know, those flowers fall off, and then it's almost like they're attached to the leaves with glue at that point. Just kind of look dirty. It is what it is. I mean, if you work them into landscaping with other things, maybe just run your backpack blower over them or something. Blow all the spent blooms off. Autumn lily is another big one, if I remember right. Let's see. Yep, 4.5 by 4, so not a little one. If you're good at azaleas, that would be a good one. I mean, it's pretty pure almost, you know, like the freshly driven snow, like me, just like me. So it looks like that is it for the azaleas and rhododendrons, unless we come across some more. I feel like it might be fun to maybe go over here to the clearance section, see what they got. Probably not going to be anything we're interested in yet, but I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. So let's take a look. So I'm digging around. There's a lot of potted petunias. I did see these junipers down here, which are kind of a variety I'm not familiar with. Monrovia is always kind of working on stuff. They're always kind of tweaking stuff. I'm familiar with Monrovia's blue ice juniper, which was supposed to be an answer to the blue rug juniper, which dies out kind of in the center once it gets some age to it, and those stalks get real woody in the center, has a tendency to die out, which then just becomes a weed factory at that point. This one gets 2 by 8, and it's called the burly blue juniper. I would say you could go on their website and look up burly blue juniper, and this would come up. I'm kind of a sucker for marketing. It just says an outstanding cold hardy evergreen shrub on a low mound spreading form, which the math tells us if it's 2 by 8, it's low growing spreader, with a more refined foliage color and denser habit than the blue creeper. And I'm assuming they're talking about blue rugs. I can kind of see that, but when they're young like this, these are in a 5-gallon pot, and they're normally $79, so that would take us into the 50% off range. They all look dense, right? It's when they get older you've got to worry about it. Ideal at the foreground of shrub borders as a specimen accent or as a rugged, large-scale ground cover. Maybe in a Japanese garden or something like that, you could have your specimen surrounded by this. Maybe like a blood good Japanese maple with the blue junipers all around it would probably be really nice, because you can get blood goods to grow in full sun. Sometimes it can be a challenge depending on the summer. You'll get some leaf scorch. If they're pruned right and they can create a kind of a pretty canopy, they're never really going to get too big to where they would shade these completely. So that would probably be a good combo. That's really the only thing that I saw. There's some Forsythia over here. This is Magical Gold. It's $42.98 for a 2-gallon. Jeez Louise. The only way you could afford those is if you were on the clearance rack. So that would be 50% off. Looks like they've got a couple of them. Nothing that I'd be interested in, which is a shame, because I love to spend money I don't have. Now these are Dappled willows. They've got them for $28.98, and I just saw some 2-gallon Dappled willows at Walmart for like $12. It was kind of crazy, and they weren't marked down. That was just the price. Kind of neat. I like that. Walmart, for the most part, is having pretty good prices this year. Yeah, get it out of here. Wow, look at these. In typical Lowe's fashion, they are not with the other rhododendrons. Album rhododendron, that's this guy right here. Very pretty. Kind of opens, let me see if I can get this on camera, kind of opens into a very light purple and then opens to white. But those, wow, but those flowers are very pretty. Very pretty. I don't hate on white rhododendrons as much as I do white azaleas. Seems like these have a tendency to, you know, the flowers blow away really easily. This one is, wow, this one's an 8-footer. 8x6. That's big. Oh, here's another variety. This is, oh, Nova Zimba. I used to sell a lot of these. Very pretty, look at that. They're just getting ready to pop. Just getting ready to pop. And that's typically that's when I buy them, especially when I'm shopping for a landscape job. I always buy the tightest ones that I can find because I want that delayed gratification for the customer, right? The key to that, and these Nova Zimbas 5x6, yeah, that's about right. The key to a lot of this, when we're talking about delayed gratification, I'm maximizing the amount of thank yous I'm gonna get for improving somebody's landscape, right? It's very easy to get the initial gratitude. Easy to get that because now you've torn out those old boxwoods, you've torn out those old yews, you've trimmed up their beds with the bed edger, you've straightened out the flat rock that collapsed, you've done all that stuff, you've put a new set of mulch on, everything looks amazing. You're always gonna get that, oh, it looks so good, I can't believe, blah, blah, blah. You know, you always get that, and that's nice. That's nice, I enjoy that. But I like to get phone calls 2 weeks later, and then I like to get phone calls 2 weeks after that, and then I like to get phone calls 2 weeks after that about how much they love their landscape because now stuff is popping. And when maybe you initially planted it, and if you do it right, you'll get phone calls the season after, right? Because maybe there's something that was already done blooming that you put in, and really that's the key. You're delaying the gratification. When I pick out a rhododendron, I would usually pick out one, like say like this one. Doesn't have any blooms on it, it's very tight. You're creating a sustainable landscape for them that's just gonna do its thing. That's where creating a beneficial bacteria and rich, fungal-rich environment, obviously not for rhododendrons, but bacteria, creating a sustainable watering system for them if they don't have irrigation, something that they can maintain. All of that's really important because it's your reputation on the line. When I was telling you about shrub peonies being a lot less expensive, this is $14, it's $13.98. This one is called, oh, this is a Carl Rosenfield. I always feel like if you're gonna cuss, if you're gonna be like, Rosenfield? I don't know, if anything bad happens, like you bump your knee, Carl? I don't know why I get that impression when I think about the Carl Rosenfield peony. It is what it is. With all these high winds and it's dry, they are trying their hardest to keep this stuff alive, but there's not a lot of water retention in a 3-gallon pot. But you can see some of these blooms are looking a little on the dry side, and it doesn't take long for them to start pulling moisture out and drying out. I have a sneaking suspicion that if you can see how many of these there are, there might be some European hydrangeas in our future when it comes to the clearance rack. Look at this. This is a sub and substance hosta. Sum and substance. I have a tendency to say sub and substance because I'm a math geek. I'm just playing. That's not really the reason. $8.48 for a 1 gallon. Look how pretty that is. This is Landscape Rescue. I am Stuart Moore, and thank you very much for letting me into your home talk about plants.